I'm Natasha Kirchak, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, Israelis are outraged over the release of a controversial new UN report. Israel exchanges rocket fire with the Gaza Strip, and we'll reveal why some tourists in Israel are having the dream vacations of their lives. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. Israeli officials are furious over the release of an inflammatory report from a United Nations commission. The Beirut-based panel is accusing Jerusalem of practicing an apartheid regime that oppresses and dominates the Palestinian people as a whole. Israeli officials say such untruthful allegations aren't surprising, though, when one considers the source. A UN agency called the Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia is behind the document. The panel named its study Israeli practices towards the Palestinian people and the question of apartheid. The Jordanian-headed group then concluded that policies enacted over the Palestinians violate international law.
لا تقتصر أهمية هذا التقرير على أنه الأول من نوعه الذي يصدر عن إحدى هيئات الأمم المتحدة ويخلص بوضوح وصراحة إلى أن إسرائيل هي دولة عنصرية قد أنشأت نظام أبرتايد يضطهد الشعب الفلسطيني، بل إن أهميته تكمن كذلك في تسليطه الضوء على جوهر قضية الشعب الفلسطيني وشروط تحقيق السلام.
The apartheid comparison is often directed at Israel by its critics and is fiercely rejected by its supporters. Israel's foreign ministry likens the UN report to strongly anti-Semitic Nazi propaganda. Israel's own ambassador Dani Danon is branding the publication as a despicable, blatant lie that constitutes a false smear campaign against the only true democracy in the Middle East. Danon is calling on the Secretary General to disassociate the UN from this biased and deceitful report. Now, appeals for UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres to dismiss the condemnatory WWII report on Israel are apparently already being heeded with almost lightning speed. A spokesman for the UN chief is already putting distance between the findings of the Lebanon-based commission and the leadership of the world body.
If we just saw the report today, which, as you say, was published by ESQA, it was done so without any prior consultations with the Secretariat. And the report as it stands does not reflect the views of the Secretary General. I would add that there is that the report, on the publication itself, it says that the report and its findings and conclusions are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the views of the UN.
The report was co-authored by Richard Falk, who established a vehemently anti-Israel stance while formerly working as a UN human rights investigator for the Palestinian territories. Falk has long favored boycotts and other discriminatory practices against the Jewish nation, and his ties to the UN are also being addressed.
He used to be the special rapporteur for human rights in Palestine. That's no longer his function. As you know, the special rapporteurs are independent.
Two Hamas facilities in the northern Gaza Strip were struck by the Israeli Air Force this morning in response to the latest rocket fire to come out of the territory. ILTV's Aaron Porras has more on the story.
The rocket fell in an empty field near the Sdot Negev Regional Council near Netivot, and there are no reports of damages or casualties in neither the rocket attack nor the IAF response. In the case of a rocket fire, the Iron Dome missile defense system is triggered to analyze the trajectory of the projectile. The system decided to ignore this morning's lobby from Gaza, as it determined it would land in an unpopulated and open field. Though initial investigations reveal Hamas to not be personally responsible for the attack, as the leading organization in the Palestinian Gaza Strip, Israel holds Hamas responsible for any breaches of sovereignty. Hamas is an internationally recognized terror organization.
Meanwhile, in the United States, it seems like there's no end in sight to the vile hate campaign targeting American Jews. 3 more Jewish communities have just been hit with another wave of bomb threats. St. Louis, Missouri, Atlanta, Georgia, and Boulder, Colorado. These are the locations of the latest Jewish community centers that were targeted, but it wasn't the first time for any of them. Other Jewish day schools and institutions in at least 6 more states and Canada received similar threats by phone calls or email at the start of the week during celebration of the Jewish holiday of Purim. Altogether, there have now been around 150 similar acts against the North American Jewish community since the beginning of this year. Authorities in New York now say they believe a single individual may be responsible, but no one has yet to be apprehended. The hoaxes have been accompanied by a rise in Jewish cemetery desecration and vandalism against North American Jews. Just a few days ago, a Detroit-based website supporting Israel was hacked and filled with anti-Semitic and other expressions of hate. Israeli experts are concerned that the Trump administration has yet to define its strategy for dealing with the threats coming from Iran. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz sat down with General Yossi Cooperwasser from the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs to find out more, and the general says that the Ayatollahs think the new U.S. president is just a paper tiger.
What is necessary now is to develop an overall strategy of how to handle the Iranian threat on all its aspects. And the core issue in this respect is the nuclear agreement. We saw President Trump, when he was running for presidency, speaking very clearly about what he thinks about this agreement. But ever since he was elected, he remained silent. And I think what the Iranians are trying to find out right now is, does he really mean business? So I'm afraid that the Iranians may get the impression that they are dealing here with a paper tiger. And it's not clear yet what is the real attitude of the American administration towards the Iranian nuclear deal.
And it seems as though Israel is actually turning to Moscow rather than Washington to try to draw some kind of a red line.
No. Israel turns to Washington first and foremost, of course. This is the closest and the most important relationship we have. But in Syria, Russians are there, Iranians are there as well. They are working together on a deal. The Americans are somewhere out of the room, but interested in that deal. And for Israel, this is something that we want to discuss also with the Russians. Of course, the discussions with the Americans are much more important than those with the Russians. But those with the Russians are also important. The Russians are now very powerful in the Middle East, and it's important to see how they manage and to what extent they are ready to take our concerns into account.
Israeli generals these days have been talking about the single most problematic security issue for Israel is Hezbollah. Do you see Hezbollah as a current threat?
Well, first of all, Hezbollah is a current threat because they are a very powerful organization. And especially now that they've taken over Lebanon in a way by putting their friend as a president there. Of course, it's and Aoun said something unprecedented. He said that actually he looks at Hezbollah's forces as a part of the Lebanese power. Official power and state power. So it's something that puts really Lebanon in jeopardy, because if something erupts between us and Hezbollah, God forbid, then the entire state of Lebanon is going to be in danger. But it's not only a Hezbollah problem, and Hezbollah is a problem with all the many rockets, more than 100,000 rockets they're allegedly in possession of. The problem here again is Iran. Hezbollah is one element in the Iranian-led axis of radical Muslims who are ready to fight for Islam, and they see Israel as part of the infidel bridgehead in the Middle East that is supposed to weaken Muslims, and they deny our right to exist as a state. And the Iranians are working day in, day out for promoting this idea. The Iranians are still, even today, continue to speak about the annihilation of the state of Israel. And they have Hezbollah as one of the tools, not the only one, but an important tool in this respect.
The women of the Wall group has long fought for the right to pray at Judaism's holiest site, which is the Western Wall in Jerusalem. But after continuous acts of violence against them, the members are now filing a petition to get protection from the nation's highest court. The women say every time they try to hold monthly prayers at the wall, they end up getting bottles thrown at them, spit on, and experience verbal abuse. The Supreme Court ruled in January that the group has the right to worship in the women's section at the holy site without disturbance. But the plaintiffs claim that the police and the Western Wall rabbi and guards for the foundation in control of the area are all ignoring both the physical and verbal violence that they're facing. The plaintiffs are now asking that the court impose a temporary injunction, demanding an immediate explanation from these bodies for their failure to ensure the women's legal rights, as well as why no action has yet been taken against the perpetrators. All right, there's been yet another blow to the Israeli army's efforts to promote mixed gender units. This time it's from several rabbis and the female head of a pre-military program. All of the people who signed belong to a more liberal side of the Jewish Orthodox world, which actually embraces service in the Israeli army, unlike their more conservative counterparts. And even though they say they support the integration of women into the IDF in general, the writers stress their objection to any kind of mixed barracks on base. They're also insisting that any religious troops who refuse such assignments with women not be excluded or ghettoized by military brass. Just this week, the Israeli army announced a pilot program to train female infantry soldiers for the eventual deployment into tank units guarding the nation's borders. Many in the religious community not only oppose this project, but the inclusion of women in the army at all. Poland has just issued an arrest warrant for a Minnesota man on charges he committed war crimes during the Second World War. That move now facilitates the suspect's extradition back to the Eastern European nation for prosecution. Legal authorities believe Michael Karkok was a commander of a Nazi SS-led unit of Ukrainians who massacred Polish civilians and burned villages. He allegedly lied about his past when becoming naturalized as a U.S. citizen after the war. Even though he's now 98 years old, victims' rights supporters insist it's never too late to punish those guilty of committing atrocities. The Associated Press documented Karkok's activities in a report based on multiple sources, including eyewitness accounts and his own Ukrainian-language memoir. Even though that expose was published 4 years ago, no action has been taken until now. Poland has long sought to distance itself from allegations it collaborated with the occupying Nazis. This is strongly disputed by historians, including the author of a 2011 book called Such a Beautiful Sunny Day. At the release of its English-language version yesterday, Barbara Engelking said she documented dozens of cases when Polish peasants voluntarily murdered Jews. The current Polish government has tried to stamp out this kind of research and even threatens to imprison anyone found guilty of portraying the Poles' wartime activities as anything other than heroic. For the first time ever, Argentinian President Mauricio Macri will be hosting Israeli survivors of the 1992 Israeli embassy bombing in Buenos Aires in his official residence. Relatives of the victims will also be attending, and ILTV's Aaron Porras has more on the story.
30 attendees have been invited to commemorate the 29 who died and over 200 who were injured in the attack. Though this is the first time survivors and relatives of the victims have been invited to mark the occasion at the president's residence, it is not the first time a president has visited the victims. While officially unresolved, the Justice Department in Argentina, as well as many in Israel, accused the Iranian regime of orchestrating the bombing of both the Israeli embassy in '92 and the Amia Jewish Community Center in Buenos Aires in 1994. The Amia bombing remains to this day the deadliest bombing attack in Argentine history.
We all know about Israel's advancements and innovations in the world of agriculture, specifically with respect to drip irrigation. Well, now yet another Israeli startup is changing the game for farmers all over the world, but in a totally different way. Joining us in the studio today is Eyal Amit from Fielden. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me here, Natasha.
All right, so what does Fielden do? Tell us about this.
Well, Fielden basically helps growers of fruits and nuts to track and optimize their pest management activities. To put it in very simple terms, when you look at an apple or an orange, you see its size and its color. When we look at that same piece of fruit, we see how many times it was sprayed, with what it was sprayed, and whether or not it really meets the industry standards. What we see today is that for the most part, almost 1 in 4 of sprays goes wrong. Growers don't spray right, they spray too much, too little, but the biggest problem is that they just don't know about it whatsoever. So that's the reason why Fielden has developed a software that's designed to support every major step of the pest control process, ultimately helping these growers to save money by carrying out crop protection practices that are better, reduce the number of sprays, and completely eliminate the spray mistakes.
Now, what inspired the creation of this software?
Well, the company was founded by Boaz Bachal, whose father-in-law is a major avocado and parsimon grower in Israel. And he, when he joined the family, he very quickly realized that there was a major gap in interpreting data. So he saw that growers were working with a bunch of different technologies, but they just didn't know what to do with it. And that's when he came with the idea. He brought along Yiftach Bilgil, who's a certified agronomist, comes from a third-generation family of farmers. And that's how they started out, very much with the support of Terra Venture Partners, who kind of took them under their wing, brought them into the Terra Labs, and we've been soaring ever since. And
so when you say, that this product is helping farmers, in what ways does it help farmers? I mean, are you saving more products? Are you making it so that the fruits are safer for consumption as well?
Well, in one word, I would say visibility. I think this is the very first time that growers don't need to second guess or hope that what they plan to happen in the field actually is what happens.
Right.
Ultimately, it's about giving them that peace of mind that they're looking for. When you know what's going on, that means that you can improve your operations. It means we can help you reduce the actual number of sprays that you carry out throughout the season. And that means that you and I, when we go to the supermarket, we know what we're putting in our mouths.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think that's something that's very concerning to most of us. I was always taught to wash my fruits and vegetables before I ate them. So you guys kind of have a system that's really helping with that. Now, where are you guys working already? Is this more specifically in Israel or worldwide?
Yeah, well, we started out in Israel. Israel is great as a sandbox, but also as a market in its own right. So in Israel, we work with all the major growers and the major grower organizations. Our biggest market now is California. So we've been working with a bunch of growers across the Central Valley and Napa Valley. We work with wine growers in Italy. We're growing, we're expanding. It's pretty exciting times. And what we've seen from our growth, especially since 2016, is that this is something that the market really needs. And we're becoming a game changer in the industry, as you said it.
Absolutely. So what is next for Fielden? Tell us about it.
I think it's just getting better every day at what we do. Continue developing the software, adding more modules to fit not just the growers, but every single stakeholder involved in the value chain, be it the packing houses, be it the chemical companies, be it the wholesalers, the retailers. We want everyone to know exactly and to trace the activities so that we know what we're putting in our mouths.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming in. It seems like you guys have really created a product that is going to change, farming as a whole.
That's what we hope for.
Absolutely. All right. Thank
you.
you. Remember the Take Me to Tel Aviv competition ILTV urged you to enter a while back? Well, here's a look at some of the lucky winners in the Hotels.com contest who are being treated to dream vacations right in their very own beachfront suites. 15 couples were awarded one-night stays in the renovated lifeguard towers in Tel Aviv with windows overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. All they had to do was send photos of themselves in beach gear holding signs with the Take Me to Tel Aviv hashtag. Now they're waking up to the sound of waves at the city's newest luxury suites. Well, a lot of boutique hotels around the world have offered guest tree houses, construction cranes, or even salt flats. This government-sponsored initiative is the very first to choose a lifeguard station. Two German travel bloggers were the first to enjoy the two-story venue outfitted with a hot tub room service and very unobstructed views of the waves.
I came to Tel Aviv because the Ministry of Tourism invited me to test a new pop-up hotel on the beach, on the Frischmann Beach, and I'm very excited to be here. I had a great night in the hotel and I hope to come back soon. I think it's a great project, great idea. When I first walked into the hotel, I was so amazed by the design, which is a design by Braun Hotels, and I think it's great because it was made in just 2 weeks, and I think for just 2 weeks it's amazing.
The coastal city's municipality is also behind the campaign to show off just how great Tel Aviv really is.
Tel Aviv has two main assets. One is the beach. We were named one of the top 10 beach cities in the world. And the other one is an unbelievable urban vibe. We're known for the culinary scene and the design scene and the art scene. So this project combines these two assets. You will get to experience an unbelievable hotel room with the best food and the best design and an unbelievable city right on the beach.
Israel's tourism industry welcomes around 4 million visitors a year. So far, the number of tourist visas granted this year are already 20% higher than the same period in 2016. Many winter-weary Europeans are jetting into the country just to take long weekends, and it looks like it's just too hard to resist Israel's gorgeous sunny weather, fantastic eats, buzzing nightlife, and of course, the incomparable seafront. Here's a look at what went into creating these gorgeous lifeguard suites. All right, turning to a story now in South America. It looks like Bolivia has their very own Oscar Schindler, according to some recent files that have just been released. German Jewish entrepreneur Mauricio Hochschild owned a mining company in Bolivia, and while he used to be vilified as a ruthless tycoon, old documents now show that he helped thousands of Jews flee from persecution in the 1930s. The files show that Hochschild actually drew up work contracts for Jews from Europe so that they could escape to Bolivia. The business owner brought around 9,000 Jews to Bolivia by 1939, which is actually several times more than the German industrialist Oskar Schindler is estimated to have saved from deportation to death camps. You can actually see the work that Schindler did in Steven Spielberg's Oscar-winning film from 1993 called Schindler's List, but a movie hasn't yet been made about Mauricio Hochschild. Now the historian Robert Brockman is writing a book about the hero to show he persuaded Bolivia's military president to open up the country to Jewish migrants. At the time, Hochschild said the measure would help develop the nation's agricultural development by bringing more laborers, but in the end, doing so helped save the lives of thousands of fugitive poets, writers, and historians. Hochschild passed away in Paris in 1965, an entire 4 decades before his story even came to light. Turning now to how Israeli technology is helping the world again. We all want to believe that the air we're breathing is as clean as could be, but that's not always the reality, and an Israeli-created app called Breezometer is helping the world learn that. Breezometer shows how good or poor air quality is in a specific location, and until now, it's only been available in Israel and the United States. Now, residents of 9 more countries will have the chance to really understand what they're breathing in, because the app will be able to measure air quality in China, the UK, Finland, France, Mexico, South Korea, Taiwan, Japan, and Hong Kong. Air pollution is now the biggest environmental cause of premature deaths worldwide, according to the OECD. In fact, it even overtakes poor sanitation and lack of clean drinking water. Outdoor air pollution kills more than 3 million people across the world every year, and Breezometer helps fight the issue by supplying vital information necessary to raise awareness about it. The company's CEO, Rand Korber, says their data analytics determine the dispersion and flow of air pollution in real time by gathering info from thousands of sensors around the world. Interestingly enough, the app was actually created to help figure out what the safest places to visit in the world are for Korber's pregnant wife, since high pollution levels can cause physical and mental damage in fetuses and infants. Now 9 more nations will be able to help stem the issue by using Breezometer to track the quality of their own air.
The Hebrew word of the day is brought to you by the University of Haifa, Hebrew Summer Ulpan, open to everyone.
All right, it's time for our Hebrew word of the day. Summer is just around the corner, and I don't know about you, but to me that means vacation, vacation, vacation. So today's word is malon, which means hotel in Hebrew, because it's probably time to start booking a deal. I don't know about you, but my definition of a good malon is simply a place that I'd stay at, whether or not it's a 5-star malon, a hostel room that sleeps 8, or one of Israel's new converted lifeguard towers on the beach. There's a temporary home for everyone. But it shouldn't really matter, because if you're like me on vacation, it's probably best to spend 90% of the day outside of your malon, getting to know wherever you are. Either way, we hope the next malon that you book is right here in Israel. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. The weekend has returned and is expected to be partly cloudy with a chance of showers all weekend long. The low tonight is set to be about 51 or 11 degrees Celsius, and the high for Friday and Saturday should sit around 71 or 22 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.63 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. Thanks for watching and see you next time.